All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Course Creator Community Podcast. I'm your host, Jono, and I am super excited because we have an absolute rock star on the line this week. And I know I say that about every guest every week, but this person actually is. A little bit about her. She's the creator of the Quantum Course Lab, which is a program that helps course creators launch and scale their online courses. She's the host of the Quantum Course Creator Podcast, one of the top podcasts in the course creator space, which I recommend everybody check out. I'll put the link down in the show notes. She specializes in the combination of both live launches and Evergreen. Today, we're probably going to be speaking a bit more about Evergreen because I think it's a more popular topic. I think that's what everyone wants anyway. And also, there's a lot of people that do the live stuff as well. And I have personally hired Jess to help me with some of my launches as well. So that's how you know she's legit. She's not just a guest on the podcast. I've handed her over thousands and thousands of dollars, and I trusted her with that. So without further ado, let me introduce the one and only Jess O'Connell. Jess, how are you?
I'm so good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk on your show.
No, excited to have you on. Do you want to let the listeners know a little bit about you, Jess? Even before what you do, let us know where are you from and what's the weather over there out of curiosity.
You're rubbing it in now. Hi, I'm Jess. I live in Colorado, which is right in the middle of the United States. It is currently like -6 degrees outside in Fahrenheit, which is cold as balls. And I am a mom of two. I have two dogs. And I like being outdoors when it's not so cold that I can't be.
Awesome. And for the listeners, if you're not aware, I'm in Sydney, Australia. So it's middle of summer over here. It's 30 degrees Celsius, which is about 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So I might just pop down to the beach and have a surf after this podcast. Anyway, not to rub it in at all, but Jess, let us know business wise. What do you do? How'd you get into it?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I help course creators launch and scale their online courses. And I actually started back in 2019. I just went into my 5th year in business and I launched a course completely randomly. I didn't even really know what I was doing. My first course was some live videos in a Facebook group that people paid me for. It was pretty amazing. And I realized, oh my gosh, like I'm good at this. This is something that I'm familiar with and I want to keep going. I actually started building an audience online back in 2011 as a blogger. And so I had a lot of experience of like content creation without realizing that's what I was doing, growing an audience and all of these things. And then I created a program teaching people how to fill their fitness boot camps, oddly enough, online because I was doing that. And so I like had built this program that was working really well. And I worked with a coach to like really maximize my launches. And I had a really good launch at that time. It was $9,000 launch. I was so excited.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, I want to sell this on Evergreen now. And he was like, well, you can't. Like either you live launch it or you Evergreen. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And then I had people in my community who were like, hey, sorry, I missed card open. Is there any way I can still join? And that coach was like, no, you need to be in integrity. You shut the doors. And I was like, why would I turn people away?
Yeah.
Like that made no
I
sense
like
to me.
money. Exactly. I
I
like money.
like
Why would I
money
not
a
let someone give
lot.
me money?
Exactly. So I was like, that sounds fake. So I turned that course on Evergreen and sold it on Evergreen between my live launches. And I've made over $500,000 with that one course, served over 1,000 students with it by using a system of evergreening between my live launches. And I think anybody who tells you that you can't have one program with both is lying, obviously. And that's what I'm so excited to talk about today.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure the listeners are as well. Let me just make sure I got those numbers right. So about $500,000 from this one course.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I'm handing it over to you, Jess. Take it away. What's for the listeners? What's because they're going to be listening to this being like $500,000 one course. Yeah. Firstly, go over and follow Jess, and she's got programs that'll show you how to do it. But if we had to simplify as much as possible for one podcast, Jess, what's the first thing someone needs to do if they want to achieve similar results?
Of course. So the most important thing, or at least the first thing, is having a course that works. And I feel like this seems like elementary, but having a course that is designed for all different kinds of learners, that gets people like consistent results, is absolutely key, because you can fumble through a course with like 10 students. If only one or two get results, you're like, okay, that was pretty good. But you have 100 or 1,000 students go through it, and those kind of results, like those lack of results, are going to show, right? People talk. People are going to say like, hey, that actually didn't really work for me. And so one of the most important things is like focusing on creating a course that has a really specific scope, that has a very clear transformation, so people know that they got the results from it, and has mechanisms that help people see the transformation, because sometimes that stuff can be intangible, but creating like some way to help them measure those results. And then also, like, when things aren't producing results, or when people are getting stuck or falling off, looking at where that's happening and be consistently improving your programs, and always willing to add new things or improve your processes so more people get results, because completion rates and result rates are very important when you go to scale. And if you have a crappy course, it's really hard to scale it.
Wow. Okay. So much good bits of info there. I'll give my 2 cents on that one there. So yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And I think the key with that is also thinking it from looking at it from the customer side of view. Because I think it's very easy for us as course creators, even in that intro. I'm like, Jess, she's made $500,000 on one course. I think it's very easy for us as from the course creator to be like, oh, cool, I want to make all this money. Let me put this course together and let me make all this money from this course, this and that. And it kind of works the other way. Like there's an old saying from like Zig Ziglar or someone like that, where it's like, you can get anything you want in the world if you just help enough other people get what they want. And I think
Yes.
that's the way we need to look at it as course creators. The money will come if we put together something that actually works. So I think that's key for the listeners. And also, when Jess was mentioning put together a really good course, it's more about the transformation or the result. It's less about, hey, let's make sure it's professionally done with videos and professional PowerPoint and it looks really nice. That might be part of it as well. It might not be. I've seen people do it without it. But the most important thing is that transformation there, from, like Jess said, to give people results and have that clear thing. Testimonials is great. But I think even from yourself, from selling it, if you're kind of like, oh yeah, I got this course and you'll learn a thing or two here, it's just not that powerful. But it's like, hey, I got this course. Here's what's going to happen at the end of it. Here's all these other people that have had it, that have had this exact thing, whatever it is, Hey, look at all these people that have created their online course. Hey, look at all these people that have launched their online course. Hey, look at all these people that have got results from Facebook ads. Hey, look at all these people that have learned how to play piano in 21 days. Hey, look at all these people that have learned how to create these artworks that have never done art before, whatever it may be, if there's some strong transformation there. So I love that. And I love the improvement side, Jess. I'm a massive fan of improvement myself, where it's like, cool, you've got the course. That's step one. All right, let's get some feedback forms out there and then let's improve it from there. So I love that.
I wanted to add too really quick. I feel like especially as marketers, like we tend to focus more on our conversion rates than we do our completion rates. And I think that that's totally backwards, right?
Yeah.
If the only number we're glorifying is how many we're selling and not how many people are finishing it and getting the result, that's totally backwards. And so instead of worrying about like, oh, I got like a 10% conversion rate, which is a great conversion rate, focus on like, can I get like a 50 to 70% completion rate and get those people great, consistent results? And that's going to matter more as you scale than it's more important to help people with it than to sell it, right? Like selling it is great. That's important. But if it's not actually helping anybody, that's not going to scale. I mean, and like, didn't you become a creator to help people, not just to sell them things? Like, so really getting back to that whole thing that you said, like, you can get what you want by helping people get what they want, and focusing on that more than focusing on the income. The income is the byproduct of that.
100%. And the KPI I use there, Jess, is my feedback form. Everyone that takes the course, they do a survey at the end, give it a score out of 10. And my KPI is 9 out of 10. My goal is 10, I want everyone to get 10. If anyone gives me less than a 10, there's a box next to it. What could I have done to make it a 10? I get that. And then I implement it there. And I find that's just, that's my one there. And also, I love how you said that, because there's something, I think, especially if you're in kind of like the online marketing, online money space, It's just
Mhm.
like a lot of people talk about money, money, money. And don't get me wrong, I like money. I know you like money as well. But I just find there's something I don't like when the person's talking about just their conversion rate on the thing
Mhm.
they're selling to you. You know, it's like, hey, I've got this thing. Look how much money I made and
Uh-huh.
conversions I made off you. You know, I
Right.
think the better one is, hey, I've got this course. Look at all the feedback I've got it from it. Look at all the testimonials I've got from it. You know, oh, and by the way,
Yeah.
I made X amount of dollars from it. So I
Yeah.
love that. All right. So let's say someone's got that, Jess. They're like, hey, Jess, I got this good course. The feedback is amazing. It's really good. I'm happy with it. But I'm not selling, it's just not selling on Evergreen. What's the next thing that person needs to do?
All right. The next thing you need is a conversion mechanism. And I know that there's a lot of misusing the word of evergreen, right? There's some people who think evergreen is set it and forget it. Like you put it on your website and hope that people buy it, right? Or you run ads directly to it. And unfortunately, a lot of people are not quite ready to purchase something the first time they see it.
Mm,
And so that's why we have launches, right? Because there is a conversion mechanism. A conversion mechanism is like a webinar or a challenge or something that highlights the gap that they're experiencing and then creates demand for your course as the thing that fills that gap. And so if without a conversion mechanism, your program just won't sell on Evergreen. So rather than just setting it on your website and hoping that people buy it, creating a process that simulates a live launch, but for each individual person is going to convert the best. And so what I actually recommend is taking your live launch assets and creating automations and working with the messaging to where it can work for Evergreen. And of course, testing this, right? Sometimes things work better live than they do recorded. Some
mm,
things work better like shortened if they're watching a recorded version versus a
mm,
live. And so really look at what you already have, the invite emails, the live webinar or the live workshop or whatever you did, the sales emails, the sales page. Make sure that all of it, you remove all the dates and everything. You can use timers if that makes you feel good. You can create urgency other ways, like leveraging price, like a price increase or whatever, or an expiring discount. And then test it by running traffic into that as if it were live, but just for that one person. And
mm,
so they go through the process like they would a launch. They get the emails, they watch the workshop, they get the follow up emails. And so it feels like a live launch to them. It's not like a simulated live launch because that's can be gross and hokey.
mm,
Like if you're
oh,
on a webinar and they're like pretending it's live, that's a no.
mm,
But like going through the process of a live launch with an individual person is the best way to sell things on Evergreen. And keeping in mind that different people buy at different times, right? Most times people need to see something more than once before they buy.
yeah.
And I think I'm going to get into this in my next point, but I have some really amazing data around that I think is totally mind blowing. But having a conversion mechanism, having a launch mechanism that is designed to be both used on live launches and Evergreen and using automations to connect them. And then guess what? It makes your live launches so much easier because then
Mm,
you just kick on the automation for all the sales emails. You don't have to actually like remember to email them anything. It's all already there for you. So it really simplifies your job for both live launches and doing it on Evergreen.
gotcha. Let me simplify that for some of the listeners and make sure I understand it as well. And
Yep.
I guess question before that, Jess, you're obviously recommending that the person needs to master it live first before they go to Evergreen, right?
I don't know if master is the right word, but it
Mm,
has to convert live, right?
gotcha.
Because people coming into your live launch are most likely to convert because they're there live.
Yep.
There's some peer pressure, right? There's
Yep.
some like, oh, we're all doing this
Yep.
together. And they are your warmest leads. They're the
Mm,
people who've come into your audience, been in your audience the longest. So if you have an offer and you go through a launch and nobody buys it live, it's not ready to Evergreen.
yeah.
Adding more people to, I like to use the example of like a fire. You can pour gasoline on the ground, it will not turn into a fire.
Yeah.
You can add people to a funnel that doesn't convert and you'll just have people, right? You will
Mm,
not have sales. But if you have something that is converting, like a little flame, and you pour gasoline on a flame, then it becomes a fire. But if you don't have the flame, if you don't have conversions, then more people is not going to solve your problem.
Gotcha. So for the people listening, if you did a live launch and it didn't work, Evergreen's not the solution, right?
Yes.
Fix the live launch, and then you can go to Evergreen there. And it sounds like what you're saying, Jess. If you're doing a live launch, everything's a bit more manual, right? It's like, I'm going to run this live webinar on this date here. So let me make sure I send an email on Monday to my list, and Tuesday on my list, and Wednesday to my list, and let me make my social media posts on those things as well. And then, I run that webinar live, and then I'll manually send the emails afterwards. It's got to be on this date here. Once you've got, I guess, a system there, then you're essentially saying like, right, I did that. Let's give it a crack. Evergreen. Let's, whatever it is, put a Facebook ad out there, put a link in my Instagram bio out there, and tell people to watch the webinar or whatever. And then someone would go through that same process, but it's automated. It's not me going on Monday and sending the thing. It's or the day after or whatever. The person will go, enter in their details. They get sent the webinar straight away, and then they'd automatically get emails after that.
Yep, exactly. So you'll use technology to your advantage. And if you use a program like Kajabi, you can set up automations very simply. If not, you can use Zapier to make these things happen. But by setting up those automations, they're experiencing the live as if they did participate in a live launch, or they'll experience the launch as if it were live, but there will be no live manual element from you.
Gotcha. And on top of that as well, in terms of the actual, when you're saying mechanism, webinar is the easiest way to probably explain it to people listening. Are there other variations of that, or what do you want to touch on that at all?
Yeah, absolutely. So I love a webinar. I don't think webinars are dead. I am a big fan of webinars because they're a very quick way to kind of get the important details out to your audience, as well as they convert really well when done well. Another thing that I really love that works really well for colder audiences or people who are less familiar with online courses is what I call a hybrid challenge. So I created this. It's like the turducken of launch mechanisms in the United States. Sometimes people will stuff a turkey inside of a duck, inside of a chicken.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
It's a what?
Like,
Sorry?
what is a turducken? So
Yeah.
a turducken is like, it's a chicken stuffed inside of a duck, stuffed inside of a turkey.
Okay.
I don't know why people do this. It sounds like an abomination, but it's like three things all stuffed together. America, am I right?
Okay.
And so so what I did was I found that normal challenge launches just weren't converting anymore. And so people were kind of tired of doing a 5-day challenge. So I was like, well, what are the best parts of a 5-day challenge? What are the best parts of a webinar? What are the best parts of like a workshop? How can I stick them all together and create this hybrid style launch? And so I have a workshop about this, but it basically is day one, you talk about like, you start to create the demand gap, right? A demand gap is the like helping people realize that where they are and where they want to be, there's space in between, and that your program is the bridge between them. And so day one, I talk about like the biggest mistakes or misconceptions people have about getting to where they want to get. The next 3 days, I break it down like a workshop where each day is a pillar of my methodology and my framework, and help them see like these are the big picture things you need to do in order to get that result. And then the last day is a webinar basically that walks them through how to get the result and how my program is that how. It's the roadmap. And that process together does an amazing job. It converts like gangbusters. And it works really well for cold audiences because it takes people through that like audience warming, creates like solution awareness, and also offers within 5 days. And so it's a really like, that's another way that you could automate that, where like each day they get an email, that email has a video, they watch that video, and they can go through that with automation. And then the doors open on the last day with the webinar. And so it's a longer mechanism, but if you have a colder audience, it's a great way to educate and then pitch all in one, versus like relying on your content to educate them so that they become solution aware and then choose you as the solution with a webinar. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yes, that makes sense there. So awesome. All right. So that's the second thing we've got to do there. We've got to have that mechanism. We master it live first, and then we can get it on automation there. What's the third thing, Jess?
So the third thing is really having that strategy of live launching and evergreen. I know that there's so many people who say like live launching is the best. You should always live launch your programs. And then people who are like, never live launch ever again. Live launching is the worst. Evergreen your programs.
Mm,
And it's like, why is there this like gang war between the two? They work together very beautifully if you know how to do it.
mm,
And so this is something that just like that business coach I had told me like, no, you can't do it. It's out of integrity, blah. These are my rules. Like I'm defiant. I was like, why? That makes no sense to me. You should imagine man, I got in trouble a lot as a kid. My poor dad had to ground me because I was like, why? Why
mm,
is that a rule? And so same way though with marketing, I'm like, why is this a rule? That makes no sense. And so by having a strategy to evergreen your programs between your live launches and really seamlessly going between them is really the best way to convert your audience. And so something that we never talk about is what happens to the other 95% of people who go through your launch and don't buy.
mm,
We focus on the 5% who did, but what about the other 95%? And we just completely ignore that they exist or hope, oh my God, we hope that they'll be ready to buy the next time we feel like live launching.
mm,
Like their problem is no longer pressing for them if they needed a little bit longer or time to get some money to buy your program, right? And so then by not launching again until you feel like live launching and hope that they just stay in your audience, you're losing people, by the way. You're hoping that they buy with you and they don't go find somebody else to solve their problem, right? We're not the only people who solve our problems in our industry. There are alternatives, and ignoring that is naive. And so rather than making people wait for you to live launch it again, or God forbid, starting a wait list, that's the worst idea. Never send people to a wait list. That's a list where they go to die. I recommend having these strategies in place to convert them on the back end. And so people make decisions in two different ways, right? Either people need to think about it, or people can make a decision fairly quickly. And if you want to get like weird and spiritual about it, I believe that this comes down to your human design. We will not go into human design today, but there are two sides of authorities on human design. There are people who need to wait and people who are ready to go now, right? People who like have a gut feeling or an intuition and they're like, all right, I'm in. They know it's the thing. And then there's people who need a little more information, a little bit more time. And those people often don't buy in their first launch because they just are not quite ready to make that decision. Whether they need to do more research, maybe it's the financial thing, right? Some people buy now. In fact, about 5% buy now, 95% don't. And so rather than being so excited about the 5% and completely ignoring the 95, how can we capture those people on the back end? And that's where having an evergreen webinar is really impactful. And when you come to your next launch, people who come in through your evergreen, because again, 3 to 5% will buy then the first time they see your webinar. The other 93 or 97 to 95 won't. And so, when you catch those people on the live launch, right? It's this circle that if they come in during evergreen and they don't convert, then they'll go through the live launch. And if they went through the live launch and they didn't convert, then they'll go through the evergreen. And by having a strategy that keeps them going round and round, either they will buy your program or they will hop off the fence and decide either I don't have, like, this no longer solves the problem I thought it would, or I just want to follow this person because I love their content, but I'm not going to buy anything. And that's fine. But you don't want people to be frustrated sitting on a wait list, waiting to die because you made them wait until the next time you live launched for them to solve their problem. People aren't going to wait for you. And so this is where I wanted to bring in that data. So on that course that I've sold over 1,000, made over 500K on it, I saw real tangible data where this was so impactful. So I spend most of the year on Evergreen and I only live launch once or twice a year because I have a system that works, and why break it? If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? And so most people come in through the Evergreen, which means that they opt in, they get the 5 days of training. It's that hybrid challenge style. Day 5, they're presented the offer. There's 5 days of sales emails after that. And then the doors close, quote unquote. It doesn't actually really close. They could go back to the sales page if they wanted to, but I stop emailing them about it regularly. Then they go into my normal funnel, which I have weekly emails that are warming them up. And then it comes time for the live launch, or I re-engage them into another topic. Like I do random workshops, or I will do a one-off webinar to kind of pop open the door, run them back through the email sequence. It's all very strategic. In my last live launch, I had 75 purchases. Fabulous.
Woo.
50 of them had gone through the Evergreen funnel. 50 had previously seen the offer and decided not to buy. That's 2/3 of them.
Yeah.
25 people bought it the first time. They were brand new when they watched the live launch and they bought it. But 50 went through the Evergreen, saw the offer, knew the price, knew it was coming, opted into the live launch, and then bought it. Amazing, right? Those 50 people maybe wouldn't have bought had they not gone through the Evergreen funnel. But because they were aware of my program, they were aware of the price, they were able to make that decision faster and better because it was not the first time seeing the offer. I don't think it's ever bad to show people your offer more than once. And why not show people your offer when they are most in the market for it? People opt into a webinar, people opt into a training when that problem is the most pressing for them. When they're like, oh my God, I just need to solve this now. Oh, look, here's this free training. And that's when they're like, oh, yes, it's the most pressing. So if they don't buy, it's either not the right solution, not the right time, or not the right price. And so they may need a little bit longer, like I said, but the next time you present that offer could be the right time, the right offer, the right price. And that's when they'll jump on it. And so I was impressed that 2/3 of the people who bought it the second time at least that they saw the offer. And that is staggering in my opinion.
And it's probably the same the other way as well, right? Like if someone came in to watch your live launch, they're more likely to purchase off the Evergreen than someone that just came straight into the Evergreen, right?
Yes. And that it does. It works the same way too. People need to see the offer more than once, right? People need to, and honestly, there's no bad sides. Like I see absolutely zero downsides to positioning your offer more than once because then they know about your course. It's not like this, like, surprise, I have a course, right? They know about it. They know the price. They know what it solves. They know about your offer, and then they can think about it. And it's even better if they don't buy and then they're kicking themselves a little bit and they're talking to their husband and they're like, hey, I saw this course, but I really think I want to do it, but I'm not really sure if I can get results. Like it is eating away at them. And when you offer them another way to get into it, if you offer them another time to buy without gatekeeping and being like, no, the doors are closed, even though it's imaginary and it's recorded and it really doesn't matter. Like then people can buy when they're ready to buy. And spoiler alert, people who buy when they're ready to buy, not just because you're closing the doors and they're afraid of missing out, actually do the course. Actually watch it. They don't just buy it and stick it on their digital bookshelf because they're afraid they're not going to be able to join the next time you offer it. They buy it when the problem is pressing, when the solution is on their, like the front of their mind, and when they can actually dedicate the time and energy to getting that solution. So your completion rates are going to be way higher. Your transformation rates are going to be way higher because the people going through your program are going to be ready to get the solution.
Yes, love that. Now, I'll simplify this for the listeners as well, because there's a little bit going on there. And I'll also kind of give my 2 cents there as well. Maybe I'm just talking about myself when I buy, but I think it's similar for other people as well, where it's like, sometimes I'll speak to someone the first time and I'll be like, it's not that good. I can go and do it myself. And then I go and try it myself. And then I come crawling back 3 months later, being like, oh,
like,
man.
I lied. This is hard.
Exactly. Or the opposite. Oh, no, that's overpriced. I'm sure there's someone that, that can do it for cheaper, or there's a cheaper option out there. And then I find there's either not a cheaper option out there, or the cheaper option out there wasn't what I was looking for. So I think there's, sometimes if someone just sees it the first time, depending how long they've been in the space or whatever, they might not value it as much as that time because they haven't tried and done it themselves, or tried another alternative and see how hard it is. And I'll just summarize that for the listeners. So it sounds like what you're saying, Jess, is let's just call it once a year, for example, you'll do a live launch. Let's just say you do it at the start of the year. You do a big plug for that live launch. Most listeners will know what we mean by a live launch. You'll do that. Some people will buy it. Some people won't buy it. Whoever doesn't buy, or I guess, some people buy, some people don't buy it. You'll then have like a regular email that you send out every week or whatever that might be pitching something. It might not be. It might just be some content, whatever. But there's always that webinar, I'm guessing, is always on your Instagram and probably on your Facebook as well. And people can just go through it anytime. They'll enter their details. They'll watch that webinar. They'll get 4 or 5 emails afterwards telling them that thing. They buy, great. If they don't, they go into that kind of regular email where you're emailing once a week kind of thing. Is that the essence of it?
Yeah. And I recommend like quarterly, like micro launches. So
Yeah.
where I will do like there's something new in the industry. I'm going to create a little webinar. Luckily, when you have a webinar that actually works, you really only need to change like the 3 points of information in your webinar. The rest can stay the same. So it's very easy to update your webinar. Or if like there's a common question that you keep getting asked, like that's a great opportunity to stick together a quickie webinar, email your whole list, say, hey, I'm doing this free training on this thing, and open up the doors again. And you sent like, it's a little micro launch. You don't have to do any promotion besides like, hey, list, I'm doing this little training, come watch it. And then the people who are already in your audience and already on your list will be like, oh, I'm interested in that. Oh crap, the doors are open again. I'm so like, I didn't buy it last time, but now's the right time for me. And then they convert. And so it's not a matter of having to do this big live promotion with lives and manual emails and all the social media and all that nonsense. If you have these little micro promotions, and then I use like on my podcast, I have ads where it'll be like, hey, come watch my free training, right? And then anybody who listens to that are like, oh, I want that. And then that puts them in the funnel. Or I'm on someone else's podcast and I'm like, hey, come check out my free training. And they're like, oh, and then they come in my funnel, or they read my blog that I'm promoting on Pinterest, or they read my reel and then go check out the link in my bio. Like there's so many ways that I'm driving traffic. And that actually leads us to the next point, is getting more people and more eyeballs on it in between your launches is only going to help you.
Gotcha. Well, do you want to expand on that? You rattled off a few there. So obviously, well, actually, I'll hand it over to you. Maybe expand on those points you did there, or how, if someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, great. How do I get more eyeballs on it?
Exactly. So this is the thing that a lot of people miss when they put something on Evergreen, right? Maybe they have a funnel, maybe they have like a masterclass or something, but people aren't going through it. And it's probably because they're skipping this last part, right? If you have it just sitting on your website, I can't help you. You need a funnel. But I mean, I guess you could manually drive traffic to that, but it's just not going to convert the same. But once you have a funnel, once you have a course that gets results, once you have like a conversion mechanism, once you have that system of live launching and Evergreen, then you need people, right? And so this is really where having an intentional visibility strategy is like job number one, right? All of these other things are in place to work for you. The only thing that you have to do work for is to bring more people into that. And so a few different ways that I recommend doing that for free would be creating content, consistently creating reels, consistently creating Instagram content to drive traffic to that thing. So if you have that free training, and if there are 3 content points in it, what content can you create that points back to one of those 3 content points? And your call to action can say like, want to learn about how to leverage this thing that I'm talking about in your next launch? Go watch my webinar, go watch my free training. And so you can create blogs, you can create podcasts, you can create Instagram content, you can create Facebook posts, you can go in other people's Facebook groups like Jono teaches. Like there's so many ways that you can create content and then drive people to this source piece of content, your funnel, that's going to then get them into your email stream. Another great way to do this and amplify your visibility is by leveraging other people's people, the OPP. And so other people's people is being on podcasts, right? Like this, where you and I are talking, and then I'm going to point you in my funnel, except I'm not because I'm in between funnels right now. So you're just going to go listen to my podcast for more. But if I had a funnel, this is a great opportunity for my content, the thing I'm talking about on your podcast should be related to that free training. And then it's a natural progression and it's a value add for your audience, right? Like go learn more about this in my free training, then plugs them into my funnel. Another way, so intentionally pitching yourself to podcast hosts, intentionally getting in front of your ideal client in that way. I actually recommend a different way than a lot of people do this. A lot of people will send a blanket email to strangers and be like, can I be on your podcast? And as a podcast host, I ignore those emails. I'm sorry. I get a lot of them. They drive me crazy. And I'm like, I don't know who you are and how, like, I don't think your topic is that relevant. You know what will get you on my podcast? Instagram DMs.
Mm.
Show up in my DMs, get to know me a little bit, comment on my stories, tell me I have a cute dog, and then say, hey,
That could have
I've
been
been
anything. When you said dog, I'm like, what's she going to say after? That could have been anything there, but sorry,
This is
continue.
when I'm plugging my OnlyFans.
Yeah.
It's all dog content though. Spoiler alert. Um, but by kind of forming a relationship with me, you don't have to like take me out to dinner, but tell me that you've been following me for a while, that you've been listening to my podcast, that you think that my audience would love your topic. Even better, leave a review on my podcast and tell me, hey, I just left this amazing review and I think that I could add to your show. I am so much more likely to say yes when you build that relationship a little bit first. And so if you're having a hard time getting on podcasts, why don't you try a little relationship building with podcast hosts and go about it that way? That was a little bonus tip for your audience. But like getting in front of other people's audiences is huge. Do live video trades, right? Let's go live on Instagram together. You can talk to my audience, and then another day I'll talk to your audience. That's 2 lives where we're cross-pollinating. And there's so many different ways, even if people don't have a podcast, to get in front of their audience. Another way is take that free train. You guys, this is like the most valuable podcast anybody has ever given you. Like that, get notes, pause, write it down. Take that free training. All these people that you've connected with the podcast or Instagram, or just people who have your people in general, to email them, or when you're DMing them on Instagram, say, hey, I have this free training that I think your audience would love. Would you be willing to send out an email or two to them about it? And I'll pitch your free training to my email list. Easy freaking peasy, guys. It's an email. Who's not going to email their list, right? And so it's another way to get your training in front of somebody else, has third-party validation because somebody else that you trust said this person is legit. Go follow their stuff, right? So getting in front of other people's people is going to amplify your visibility. And then getting in front of an audience, be in a summit, speak on a stage, right? Be positioned as an expert in somebody else's business is going to make you an expert in the eyes of other people. And so if you're not amplifying your visibility, you're not going to get people into your funnel. And then once you have a funnel that converts to cold traffic through this strategy, then start running Facebook ads. And then in my opinion, only then, right? Because then again, you guys, this is so valuable. Jono, you should charge people like $500 for this podcast. Retarget those audiences. Retarget the people who are been on your Instagram because they saw your reel, who have been on your Facebook because they read your post, who have listened to your podcast. Retarget them because they already know who you are. So rather than worrying about sending targeting ads where you're like women who are 34 to 44, who live in Sydney and who are going to the beach later because Jess lives in Colorado and it's cold, instead of trying to hyper target people, retarget people who are already looking for your stuff and target them with ads. Get them into your funnel. And it doesn't have to be that hard. And then more people that you get into your funnel, the more sales that you're going to make, more people you're going to help, and you're going to get them amazing results because you have an amazing course.
Awesome. All right. Therefore, great points, Jess. Let's summarize them and then we'll move on to some closing questions. So for the listeners, these were Jess's 4 points in order. Number 1 was have an awesome course or get a course that gets results. Number 2 is have some sort of a sales or conversion mechanism, such as a webinar that works both on live and on Evergreen. Number 3 was come up with that, I guess, cycle or strategy where both of them work together. And then number 4 was make sure we're getting new people through that funnel there. So awesome information, Jess. There's a few questions I like to always ask at the end of my podcast. The first one is around course creation platforms. So everyone's got their own. There's many of them out there, you know, Kajabi, Newsendler, Thinkific, Teachable, Udemy, whatever it may be. I'm curious, what platform do you use and what do you think?
I'm a Kajabi purist. I've been using Kajabi since April of 2019. Big fan. I don't think that Kajabi is the perfect fit for everybody, especially if you're starting out. But I do think that when you're ready to stop duct taping shit together and have one streamlined platform, I think that Kajabi is a lot more customizable than people realize or take the time to really take advantage of. So hiring somebody who's an expert to kind of put all that together for you is going to be important, especially as you scale, because it can handle a massive amount of volume. without a bunch of plugins. Like I do Evergreen funnels on Kajabi without using Deadline Funnel. I use all of the automations. It's really the higher level stuff that people sleep on with Kajabi. And it's pretty great.
Awesome. Yes, that's I think it's the best for course creators, and I think it's the most popular. It's probably a tie with Thinkific for guests on this show, but I feel like it's probably equal with Thinkific for people that come on. In saying that, the people that use Thinkific are usually strict course creators. Not too fussed about the marketing side of things. It's more like I just want a course. Anyone that's more on the marketing and course goes with Kajabi. So good answer. Next question, Jess, is around mentors. So you're obviously a mentor for plenty of people out there that want to sell more online courses. I'm curious to hear who your biggest mentors have been over the years. If you can answer this in 3 different ways. If you can give us a paid mentor, so someone that you've paid money to and you've done their course or coaching, whatever it is, an unpaid mentor, so someone that you follow on social or listen to their podcast, whatever it may be, and a book that you recommend every course creator should read. So mentors, paid, unpaid, and book.
This is such a good question. Okay. So I'm going to go with free with the book first, and that's Go Giver, hands down.
Oh, yeah.
If you have never read Bob Berg, he was actually on my podcast. Did you see that?
No, I did not see that. That's awesome.
I snagged Bob Berg.
That is good.
Randomly, we connected through a mutual connections Facebook post. Like I made a comment that Go Giver is my life. And he was like, I'd love to hear that. And I was like, Bob Berg commented on my post. And then I had like a moment of balls and I was like, want to be on my podcast? And he was like, I'd love to. And I was like, fangirling. It was amazing.
That is good.
Yeah, huge get. But Go Giver, man, that was a game changer for me and just like completely shifted my mindset around selling and serving and all the things. So massive life-changing book, easiest read of all time also. Follow mentor. That's a great question. Who do I love to follow? It's funny. This is a mentor, even though she's not really a marketer. But I love following her content and I pay her for her. Like I am a part of her paid community. Her name is Sharon Says So. Her name is Sharon McMahon. Her Instagram is Sharon Says So. She's a government teacher. She teaches the United States government to grownups. She has over 1 million followers on Instagram. And I started following her because she answers people's questions. And so she would put up a question box. People would ask government questions and she would answer them. Nonpartisan, completely like from the perspective of a teacher. She is a very pure educator. I love her podcast. It's incredibly entertaining and educational. I love her Instagram content and I'm in her book club where we like get a bonus content. And it's just a fun way to see somebody be a digital creator in a really unconventional way. And I love being in her audience and I love learning from her and I love learning about government and all of those kinds of things. So such an interesting business model. And I'm always asking like, how can I serve my audience better by asking, like by answering the questions that they want to have the answers to. And I think it's such a beautiful way of building trust with people. It's just being willing to answer their questions. Paid mentors hard. I've had a lot of bad paid mentors and I've had a lot of mentors that I've paid that I now disagree with. So I'm trying to think if this one's again, unconventional probably. I think my favorite paid mentor would be Jen Casey. Her name is Hello Jen Casey on Instagram. She used to teach in like the course creation business coaching space. Now she's really more of like a spiritual teacher and like does like energy work and stuff. But what I was in her mastermind, she's one of the people I've paid the most. And what I learned from that and what she really helped me with was being authentically myself. She is incredibly goofy. She's like a theater kid at heart and like her reels are ridiculous and funny. And like, she is so authentically herself and has the courage to be herself. And I know so many of us in the online space are like, I have to be the buttoned up version of myself. I have to be like Amy Porterfield. I have to do the things to like make people like me. But like, isn't it more fun to be a total fruitcake and like a goofball and be yourself? And I find that you find the most authentic people for you when you're your most authentic self. So in like a roundabout way, I did pay her. I learned a lot about like marketing and like being yourself by being in her container. But I would say that like paid mentor would be Jen Casey just for her authenticity.
Awesome. Awesome mentors. So, Jess, there's going to be a lot of people listening to this that are like, okay, this woman is awesome. I want to follow her. I want to hear more about her. Best place is your podcast at the moment. If so, give it another plug.
Yes. So my podcast is called Quantum Course Creator Podcast. I'm at 120-ish episodes, so there's lots to go off of. And I talk all about course creation. I talk about Evergreen and launching. I talk about giving a shit about getting people amazing results. I talk about marketing. I talk about all sorts of things. So it's a great show. The episodes are short and sweet. Unlike this one, we've been talking for almost an hour. Sorry. And it's like my favorite place to show up. I'm also creating content again on Instagram. I didn't for like 6 months, which felt so nice to just like write off Instagram, but I've been having fun with it again. So I've been putting out some reels, putting out some really good carousels. So definitely you can check me out there too.
Awesome. All right, Jess, that's pretty much all I wanted to get through today. Anything I should have asked but forgot to, or anything you want to finish us off with?
Well, you didn't ask my OnlyFans account name.
Yeah.
So
I didn't want the listeners to know I was going to go and check it out, you know?
Fair enough. Fair enough.
That's a joke for the listeners. That's a joke.
That's a joke. I'm not actually on OnlyFans, though. Honestly, amazing marketing platform. Like, get it. If you can make money doing that, like, why not? Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think we covered a lot, and I'm sure your listeners' pages are already filled with notes. So I will leave them with that.
Awesome. All right, Jess, thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.